Welcome back, everyone, to Business Aspirin. I'm your host, Clint Junell, and today I have with me Jamie Leonhardi with Superior Abatement Services, Inc. out of SoCal. Jamie, how the heck are you?
Hi, good morning, Clint. Thanks for having us today.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you on here. So let's talk a little bit about what part of Southern California you're in.
Sure. So we're actually headquartered out of San Diego, not a bad place to be, but we do service all of Southern California, typically LA south to the Mexican border and over to the Arizona border.
Yeah, love it. So what a beautiful area too, right? So what's the
Yes, we lucked
what's
out.
the weather right? We're mid-June at this point. What's the weather like right now in your area?
Yeah, so we call it June gloom in the morning. We're pretty socked in usually with some fog, but around 9:30, 10 o'clock, it's gorgeous. And I think yesterday we hit about 85. So, really can't complain.
Sure. Yeah, so here in DFW, we can't even get down to 85 anymore, right? Like we wake up, it's still 90 degrees outside, and I think the heat index here today is 107. And
Oof.
so we've started to hit that time frame where it gets hot and miserable, and you leave and want to punch somebody in the face because it's just you can't get a reprieve from it. Southern California sounds really nice right about now.
Yes, there's not too much fluctuation in the weather for us, so we're pretty grateful, but we pay that sunshine tax for sure.
Yes, you do. So let's talk about Jamie. Who is Jamie? Let's talk a little bit about you. You have a family. Let's talk about those guys.
I do. So, yeah, I am a mom to two. I have a 5.5-year-old and a 3.5-year-old. I'm also married to a law enforcement officer. He is a supervisor for the San Diego Sheriff's Department, and was previously at one point their labor union president for 5 years, recently back on patrol. So that's a little bit of an adjustment
Yeah,
for our family. But yeah,
sure.
we live about 7 minutes from the office, so super quick. The kids' preschool is maybe a minute and a half, so easy peasy during the
Have
day.
you seen the social media thing where wives are running from their police officer husbands to see if they can catch them in a foot
Yes,
race? Are we
yes,
doing
I
that one?
did. No, because I'm not glutton for punishment, and I know he can outrun me. So he's pretty quick. He doesn't look it, but he's pretty
Some of
quick.
them are crazy
So
because they've been great. Like I've watched several of them, and there have been some where the husband's like pretty nice about the whole thing and just catches up to him. And there's some it's like they actually hit him and they're falling down on the sidewalk. I'm like, oh my god, that is your
yes, that
spouse.
would be why I will not be participating in that, and that is a
He might
liability. No
forget
way.
get what he's doing, and it's just this social media
Yeah,
thing, and
yeah,
tackle you to the
that's it.
ground, cuff you, throw you around. Awesome.
That's it.
Okay, so two kids. They're still relatively young, so not a ton of activities yet on that end.
Yeah, not yet. We've held off just a little bit. Both of our kids love baseball slash softball. I have a boy and a girl. And then my husband and I both played through our teen years too, but it's just quite the commitment. And my son's going into kindergarten in August, so we got to get a little settled, I
Yeah,
feel like.
sure. No, I can feel that fully. It's and it gets crazy. I have three. I have three kids. My oldest is 17
Oh,
now,
wow.
but we've done a little more than a decade of travel hockey, which is crazy. So we've played out in your part of the world, for that matter, coming
Yeah.
out of Dallas. A daughter that dances, and so that's hectic and crazy. And then a 9-year-old that's a baseball player. When they get to the point where they're all moving and doing, and you've got to get them all the places, it gets pretty crazy and hectic. So I know in your world you work all the time. You're gonna have to navigate how you can do all that from the car and make that stuff
Yes.
happen while taxiing children around. So let's
Right.
talk
Well,
about.
shameless plug. Thank you, Job Docs, because that's pretty much what we do now.
I love it. I set that up perfectly and didn't even think about that part. So let's talk about Sassy a little bit. Let's talk about your company and how you guys got into this, and what your role is, and how'd you get into the restoration and abatement space to begin with, and figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a hazardous demolition company, which means we do asbestos, lead, and mold remediation, which is out here in California, the things that standard restoration contractors can't perform based on regulatory compliance. My boss, the ownership, Tim Tilley, he actually started as a National City police officer back in the 80s and early 90s. And, him and his wife, Yvonne, who also is involved in the company still, just decided that it wasn't the direction they wanted their life to go. It was too dangerous. They, wanted to start a family. So he started actually working in the field, doing the abatement services for a company that's still around today, and then ended up working his way up into management, regional managers, opened his own business once, got bought out by another competitor, stayed with them for quite a while. And then in 2010 decided, you know what, it's time for me to go on my own again. And that's when Superior was formed. He was able to take the best of all the worlds he had experienced in abatement and leave the worst, and was able to kind of dial in this family owned business that really has taken off and done well.
Yeah, you guys
So
are killing it out there. It's amazing.
yeah, it's great. And I actually got involved. I had a family friend that was working for the company. I had no idea what asbestos was, no idea what abatement was. I was going to college out in Nevada, but my LinkedIn started getting hits from this company and from Tim. And they finally reached out to me and flew me down for an interview. And I've been working here for 11 years now.
That's
So
awesome. That's
yeah,
crazy.
it's been a good
What's
fit.
interesting is so one of my on the Mr. Restore side, my restoration company here in DFW, one of our employees was a sheriff. She was the community liaison officer for Collin County Sheriff's Department, and we know her through hockey. She's also a hockey mom, so the boys played together. And my wife and she became really good friends, but because of some of the craziness in the world, right? She was going to have to go back on patrol, and her husband, who was also law enforcement, but a little higher up in a different department, was like, no, we're not doing that. Like, you're not going back on patrol in this environment. She's been working for us the last couple of years, and we made a role for her as an admin to do what she does. So she uses JobDex all the time too. And she is able to do that while she's at, hockey tournaments and whatever part of the world she's traveling to at the time and making that work. But it's interesting, the connection between Tim and Stephanie in regards to being able to going, hey, I've got to do something different because I'm not going back into this environment right now. As a
Yeah.
female, for sure, right? A little more interesting that direction. But yeah, we brought her on from that. So it's awesome. So they just like snagged you up straight out of college
They
and
did. I
said,
wasn't even graduated yet.
perfect.
Yeah.
And
And
you're
they
like,
brought me in as
okay,
a marketing rep. Yeah. They brought me in as a marketing rep. They had never hired a rep before. His wife, Yvonne, had done some marketing for another abatement company while he was there running the branch. So what was really nice is that I came in kind of to a clean slate. No one had ever been in this position before. They, had never really had marketing reps besides Yvonne at his other companies. So when I came in, they kind of said, oh, you go drop off flyers and you go to golf tournaments and, where you bring by pens and bring by snacks. And I did that for maybe like 4 weeks. And then I said, got a business degree. We gotta find a way to actually add value in this position versus just coming by. And of course, you have to be at, people's front of mind so that you're their call, but we need to be able to stand out from competitors and do this a little bit differently. And
sure.
that, I ended up rebranding us. We changed our colors, changed our logos, a little bit more modern of a look, and then started developing educational materials that we've really dialed in over the last decade as well. And I would say we're synonymous now with being the leader in education for abatement.
Okay. See, and that's awesome. And that's something really for us to dig into, because that's the reality of the restoration space is we'll stop by the insurance adjuster or the insurance agent or insurance adjuster or whoever you can think of and drop off donuts and take breakfast tacos to the plumbing supply house. And this is how we're going to dominate the market. And then
Right.
everybody does that exact same thing, and nobody dominates the market in reality. So you said, okay, I'm going to evaluate what's happening here. I don't see this really being that valuable. I mean, there's some value to doing some of those things,
Right.
right? But
Right.
you said we need to pivot. Now, they have no idea whether you suck at your job or you're great at your job at this point, right? I'm like, nobody's ever done
Me
this for
either.
them. Yeah, right. So what made you go, this isn't it?
I actually had a few folks that were business development reps for many years that I was trained by and kind of mentored. And they pretty much said, you kind of have one opportunity to make a first impression, and you have to decide what type of rep you're going to be. You're either going to be the rep that people think of, they're like, oh, yeah, they bring the best snacks, right? Or they have the best tchotchkes. Or you're going to be the rep that when they have a question or shit hits the fan, that they call you because they know you're going to either guide them in the right direction or you're going to find a solution. for that problem to limit their liability. And with what we do, there is so much liability in this space, especially being in California, not only just the health and safety, but also the legal ramifications of not following proper regulatory compliance can lead to huge issues, including prison time, jail. I mean, it's pretty severe here.
Yeah, sure. And that, honestly, that's the reason a lot of guys aren't there, right? Is because of the
Right.
reality of that. Okay, so you decided first. Let's go. Okay, who is your primary customer? Because you said something early on that it is restoration companies can't do this work. I don't know if it's can they go get certified to do this work, or is there an ethical conflict that says no, you can't do the abatement and the restoration?
Yes. So I would say that's, a double-sided question. So yes, you can go get the certifications, but it is so expensive to carry the workers' comp licensing and to pass the tests. And, you have to qualify for one license before you can get the other, kind of the chicken or the egg theory. So there weren't too many companies in the space when I first started in the industry. There are some restoration companies that do carry the licensing for it. Typically, they're larger national companies versus being local guys. And you probably know all the names, but we did find that a lot of the clientele we have, project or property managers, insurance carriers, they actually liked the separation of the services because again, it's kind of that check and balance of, if you're doing the demo, the abatement and the recon, that project gets really big, really fast. So they liked that they had separate vendors for each thing to kind of keep everyone accountable for the amount of scope that they're doing. And, again, it just puts different eyes on it as
Sure,
well.
sure. Yeah, Texas has some rules similar to that where you can do both, but not on the same project. Mold is the same way, right? So you can't do a mold abatement and or a mold remediation and still do the reconstruction or do the consulting, do the testing, and do the remediation and make sure
Okay.
it's clear. There's a separation that says, listen, this it isn't okay for you to tell me what's moldy and you take the mold out and then you tell me you did your job well, right? Same thing on the base
Okay.
the asbestos side for you guys. So I can appreciate that fully. So then restoration companies are one of your clients as well? Like you attack those guys?
Yes, we do. So a good portion of our business actually comes direct from restoration companies, but we like to be diversified, right? So we work with insurance carriers, we work with property managers, commercial property management, real estate developers, demolition. I lived through watching some of these companies go under because they had all their eggs in one basket. And I decided early on we were not going to do that. So we did spend a lot of time diversifying those verticals.
Yeah, which I think is important. So what is the primary service that you guys offer? What do you do most of?
Asbestos abatement.
Okay. In California, abatement is required on every residential project even as well, correct?
So it depends. If you're there's different air quality management districts. I believe California has over 32 with potentially different rules in each. We work in about 4 of them for Southern California, and each of those districts can make determinations on which properties they regulate. So if you're in Orange County or Riverside County, which is kind of like Laguna, Newport, or Palm Springs, think of those type of areas, every property is regulated, which means that you do have to test each property prior to doing any sort of building material disturbance. The county requires that. If you're in San Diego County, it's a little bit different. They do regulate properties they call facilities. And there is a definition of that being a property that has more than 4 adjoining units, a property that has an inhabitable detached unit, like an ADU or a pool house where someone's living, or a commercial industrial property. Single family homes are actually not regulated, but that doesn't mean that abatement doesn't need to happen. It just means we don't have to pay the county or involve them in that project.
Sure. Okay. So then if somebody does a test and finds out there's asbestos in a property, is it required to be abated even if it's residential, although it's non-regulated?
So there is a requirement for the waste to be properly disposed of. So essentially, a homeowner can do whatever they'd like inside their own property, but when you cross the threshold with that hazardous material, that's when those fines and fees can essentially start. If you have a contractor involved in the project, they do have a responsibility to use an abatement company if they don't carry the licensing
Sure.
because it's not their home.
Sure. Okay. So then you decided to go out and start marketing to these various different organizations as the authority. You established yourself as an authority and you educated yourself on all the parts and pieces of what the rules are and the different rules in the different counties and the different regulations about where this happens, and making statements like, well, once it crosses the threshold, this is where it becomes a thing. So talk about the success in pivoting to being the authority.
Right, right. So, like I said, I kind of made a choice early on that I needed to have the answer, or at least have the resource to find the answer when it comes to these regulatory questions. Because by educating these clients, there was a potential for more business. If they understood what they were looking for, where to find it, we would be able to jump on that job if it was positive.
Sure.
So we started generating educational documents. We have something we called our asbestos awareness cheat sheet. One side has a house that shows common and uncommon areas asbestos can be found, and the other side has blocks of text broken down by what asbestos is, why it makes people nervous, the adverse health effects. And then we also go into just the basic regulatory compliance and testing guidelines, but it's all very digestible. So it's just a snapshot. And to this day, I'll still see in mitigation technicians' vans the original version that they just have taped or brought with them to other companies, because if they run into it on a property, they can talk to the homeowner, they can show them that document and explain to them, it's okay that this is here, but because we think it's here, we have to do these steps. We also have a water loss flow chart that we've generated for property managers to guide their property owners and tenants through the process, because we find that creates more problems just within itself. The number of vendors involved in a job and the steps it takes to get from beginning to end. We're minimizing the jargon associated with the steps of the claim, which then altogether is a better customer experience because they're informed. They're not wondering who's next or when this is going to happen and things like that. So it's been super valuable.
That's so great. And so many times, especially in a restoration claim of any kind, a homeowner's moved out of their house. They don't know what's happening. They don't understand the next process. They're not being informed. They're not being updated. And it creates this environment where there's a lot of anxiety. And if you've educated them up front, onboarded them correctly about this is what's going to happen, this is what you can kind of expect, it makes that process way easier for everybody, for you guys too. Like the number of times that I've had to in the past, prior to getting everything implemented and established in the job doc side with us, like talk to my guys and go, okay, look, now you've got to drive out to Mrs. Smith's house and have a conversation with her because you didn't update your job correctly and you didn't explain to them how that was going to go. So you could have spent 15 seconds creating an update. You could have spent 10 minutes educating them up front when you first got the job rolling. But now as a result, you got to drive 40 minutes across the Metroplex to have an hour long or longer conversation to drive 40 minutes back. You could have saved yourself a ton of time just through the education side. So I think It's great that you've done that. That's amazing. And I think it's important that entrepreneurs understand and hear that side of things too, because it's vitally important. If you're going to, even if it's not in the restoration space, if it's in the HVAC world, if it's a plumbing world, explain to your customer when you onboard them what's going to take place, and it's going to make your life way better because now there's not the level of uncertainty or a lack of trust or any of those things that can take place when they go, well, I thought you said you were starting immediately. Well, I might have said we could start immediately, but now we're waiting on your insurance adjuster to get the scope of repair to us so we know what's going on. And now we've got to wait on here. We'd have to wait on the 10-day notice on the abatement side before anything can even take place, that sort of thing. So it's an interesting environment that you mentioned that, because I think it's spectacular that you guys spend the time educating the way you do.
Right. Yeah, we definitely do. Especially with customers who don't have the knowledge of the restoration industry, it's imperative that you guide them through that process because they've already been through so much. For some people, this is the worst thing that's ever happened in their life. Their house is burned down. They have the whole upstairs is flooded. Those things really do affect people. So just less uncertainty can make the whole process smoother. But we also apply that to our restoration contractors, our property managers, insurance adjusters. We actually provide those trainings about just the abatement process in general and kind of what they should expect, which then helps us down the line as well, because they're not contacting us saying, where is this? What's going on? Why isn't this happening? Because they already know this wasn't an emergency. It was a 10-day. We had to wait. There wasn't an option there. So we've tried to spend time doing that as well. And recently we've been talking to TPAs, like the third party administrators that have onboarded us. The abatement program is recently new to them, but we're getting a lot of calls from them because they're like, we never had that direct line of communication to an abatement company. It's always been a restoration. So we're getting these answers secondhand.
Sure. Sure. Well, I think that's, what you're doing is amazing. And obviously it's shown in the growth and things that you've done. So let's say you're just over a decade in. Mm-hmm. Is there anything now you wish you would have known then, or you wish somebody would have told you about this space or the process that you were going to follow?
I definitely came into this thinking this was just going to be like my first job, right? That this would be something that was short-lived, and I would do this for 2 years and get my feet wet and then get into a different space. But I wish someone had told me in the beginning, this is something that there's longevity in and can be sustainable, and there's room for growth and development as long as you set the stage for that. And I think I probably would have jumped in a lot sooner and done that. I think it's worked out well at this point, but I never expected it to go in the direction it did. I should have, because I rarely see people leave our space. Like, I should have known that just watching.
It's like Hotel California, right? You can never leave. It's just the space that we operate in. It's like there's no way to get out of the restoration space. It can be great or it can be terrible, but you got to decide which one of those things you're going to make it. And in your case, like you did your job, but you didn't really buy in initially to what it could be. And then when you finally bought in, it made a huge difference, right?
Right.
And I think that's important too for people to hear, because the reality is, and I say this regularly, if you come into something, especially for the entrepreneur, and it gets difficult and it gets hard, it's really easy to leave. If you go, well, never mind, I'm gonna throw my hands up, I'm done, this is too difficult, I can't make this work. And if you have that mentality, I'm gonna only be here a couple of years, or I'm gonna give it a shot, and if it doesn't work out easily, none of this is easy. Like, your journey hasn't been easy, right?
Yeah, it's taken a lot of time, a lot of education to we talked about, create that separation between just being a marketing rep versus actually adding value in some sort of sales and business development side. But one thing I think that was a pivotal change for me specifically was when we integrated EOS, which I know you guys do as well. So we integrated that, I want to say in 2016, which was about 2 years into me being within the business. And that was a pivotal change for me, because now I sat at the table and now I had a bigger voice, and we were making big changes, and we were, we always had foundation, but we were establishing the proven process, which now again goes back to our education and training our customers to know what to expect and teaching them that. And then, our core values and things like that. I was a part of that. And so it gave me more ownership, I think, in the space, which added buy-in. And so now we still do EOS to this day. And that was a huge pivotal change, I think.
So for those of you listening that don't know what she's talking about, it's EOS stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's a method of getting your whole team on the same page, where you have regular what we call L10. We still call them L10. I don't know if you guys call them that or not. It's level 10 meeting. It's a meeting that's established where everybody has rocks or tasks that they're accountable for 90 days. And this is the most important thing that you can do over the next 90 days. And you get those things working, and you just meet as a team, a leadership team, and you talk about what things are, and you discuss and you establish, what do we need to change? What do we need to be doing? What's working? What's not working? And it helps you, like, systemizing a lot of your processes through operation makes it way easy, right? And it's interesting because, like, as we did it, we had built a ton of these processes already. Like, we were doing the processes and we were implementing the processes, but we didn't recognize exactly what it all was until we implemented EOS to actually go, okay, well, this makes sense. And then you learn some things that don't make sense, and you learn you have some people in the wrong seats, and you navigate all that stuff together. And hopefully the result is a more efficient operation. And it's been great for us. Like, we really enjoy doing it. So it's been really spectacular on that end to kind of navigate that. What are some other processes that you've implemented that you thought were game changers?
Sure. So I tell this story all the time too, especially to my small independent restoration contractors. I walked into an account I was marketing, and they were doing a whip call, and I had never heard a work in progress call before. This was probably right when I started working for Superior, and I sat and I listened to them run through the jobs they had worked on the previous day and the jobs that were running today. Were there any damages? Was there any go back work? Was there, we call them failures, right? If we have an air clearance, were there any failures? Is there anything that the sales team needs to be aware of? Are there any issues with the technicians? So combining their sales and operation department on a quick 10 to 12-minute phone call every morning was something that we never did before. And I came back and I was like, I think we need to look at this and try this. So we made a script and we have done it ever since. So we're, again, 11 years into doing our whip calls, and the amount of issues that we can just minimize from that morning phone call. We do it at 8 o'clock every morning. All estimators are required to be on it. All operations folks are required to be on it. Is incredible. I mean, honestly, that has totally changed our business, which, and again, that was free. Like, didn't cost anything.
Yeah.
Which is wild. So we still do whip phone calls as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Each day.
I think those are great. Like we did at one point, we would actually have meetings to navigate all the things that were going on in the company. And we'd have to tie up my whole team for an hour, a couple of times a week, just to be able to navigate. Okay, are we ready for the next draw? Where are we at on this project? What's going on? I mean, this is all pre-job docs existence, right? But it was interesting to have to navigate that. And so we've implemented a little bit where we have regular meetings with our team as well. And it's separate in that perspective. Like, I'm not meeting with the marketing team and the operational team at the exact same time because there's a waste of time for those guys to do it. We can do small bursts of meetings that way, very similarly. So I like it. Where do you see technology going in your space?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I would actually say we're actually pretty technologically advanced for our industry. When the company opened, Tim's kids actually said to him, why are you using a piece of paper when you have an iPad right in front of you? So he actually generated autofill PDF contracts as well as job walk notes from the beginning of the company. And still to this day, we have competitors that use paper and walk jobs, in little notebooks that I'm sure are going to get lost at some point. So we have been utilizing that software, which was off the shelf and free to anybody, since the company opened. So we already were doing those type of things. We also recently, about a year ago, implemented job docs, which has been super cool because I actually found you guys on Instagram, and our entire team was completely traumatized by trying to implement software that didn't fit us, to the point where, the directors were the ones constantly being trained on new software. And we'd get to a point and the software company would say, oh, we don't do that. Sorry. Like printing regulatory compliance documents. They're like, well, you can't do that. So you're going to have to take 15 more steps to get it done. So we were all really turned off by any sort of software at that point, just because we had been through so many and we were the ones training and kind of shooting holes in all of them, in addition to doing our real jobs. And then found you guys on Instagram, did a demo, and just saw the potential that could be there to have one system that the staff can access. But you guys were willing to be malleable for us and allow us to make suggestions and changes that would help us actually use the software versus trying to just fit into it. You guys were willing to make changes. And that was one thing that my operations director, he's like, if we do this, it's your job. Like, you're doing it because I've done all the other ones. I'm not touching this. This is your project. You do the meetings, you do the integration, all that. And we did. And now to this day, he's like, this makes our job easier. 100%.
I mean, as an owner, it sounds good. It feels good to do that. One of the things we realized early, there's several competitors out there, but they all have determined what the best processes are and best practices are. And you have to follow that in order to use their software. And it's like, we don't do it that way. And I was either dumb enough or naive enough or whatever it is to go, there's no way that anybody runs the restoration company exactly the way I run mine. Because, honestly, my staff will tell you, well, he's kind of an asshole. So he's going to do things his own way because he wants it the way he wants it. And,
right.
And I expected the same thing out of everybody else. And so when we started working on the software, it was like, okay, you got to be able to do something different than what I think is the right way because I don't know very much. So I did it the wrong way. And it's been great. Like, the reality for us is, as a software company, is working through those things with guys like you help make us better at what we're doing. Which we're like, oh, that's a good thought. I never even thought about that. Weird. Okay, great. Let's do that. And we implement new things. Like a lot of the development of the software is a result of our clients going, hey, what if you did this? It's like, that's a great idea. And we'll navigate it. If we hear it more than once, then let's see what it takes to put it in place. So we want to be malleable, right? We want to be customizable as a software company, because I think that's important in a lot of aspects.
And I think to your point, we all had kind of that same mentality of like, well, this is just the way we have to do it. And in some aspects we do because of the regulatory compliance, but that was us being stubborn. And I remember early on in conversations telling Lacey from Job Docs, like, get ready because I'm going to do my best to like be a buffer between this, but we've been burned so many times down this road. I did see the value in that. And I think the first thing really that was a turning point for us with you guys was when we came to you and said, we need a spot for all this information. Like, I don't know, 40 different pieces of information that right now you don't have a spot for. And you guys developed attributes, and attributes is just such a pivotal turn in the relationship between Superior and Job Docs because it solved that problem for us. Put whatever we want in those spots. If it's, waste manifesting guides, we have to pull data quick information. We have to have legal ownership for waste disposal. We have to have sticker labels for waste disposal, different things like that. Because we can ask it to input specific information into specific documents. Now my staff has some of their service requests down to just the push of a button as long as attributes are generated. As long as that information is in the file, in that space, it's one button versus typing it all in and then going into different logs and things like that. So I think honestly, the flexibility that you guys had with us on that was huge and really did sell us. I think we said, if we don't have this, we're out. But it worked out.
Yeah, it's so great though. I mean, truthfully, like our team is amazing. I love what they do for us and their willingness to make things happen and navigate the conversations to go, okay, yes, but where would we put that? And where does the button live? And how would you utilize it? And like software development seems really easy until you're actually developing software and you're like, okay, there's like 75 decisions we have to make right now to make this work. And they've been great. And Lacey's obviously spectacular on the customer service side, right?
Yes.
And holding your hand and being there for you and helping and little overly cheerful some days. Lacey, I love Lacey. Her husband Patrick actually works for us on the restoration side.
Yes.
She's like a daughter to me. Like I did their wedding when they got married in Mexico. So super tight relationship with those guys. And she's just been great. And so
she is.
And then Mark's ability to navigate and develop some of the things that need to happen and think through it. Like fortunately on our end, I don't know how many developers you've ever met in your life, but it's like talking to a mashed potato sandwich. It's like, I don't understand you and you have no personality, but fortunately Mark's got the ability to navigate both sides of that, which has been great for us. And we've loved it. So
yeah, we definitely looked out, and Tyler's been awesome too. When Lacey's not available, he covers for her, but it's been great too to have some of those conversations with Mark because to your point, like we're not software developers. We're just like, hey, this doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
Do we have a solution? And his has always been with us like within reason, which is fair because if it's not for everybody, like sometimes you can't integrate it. But I would say the majority of the time, the things that you guys have changed and adjusted and the suggestions that you've taken from us have been super great because I know this is the furthest we've ever gotten with any software company. And we are utilizing it pretty much every minute of every day at this point.
Sure. Well, I mean, obviously you're fully aware our goal is to be that for you. So we want to, if something happens or you need something new, we want to make that work. I mean, this is not supposed to be what this podcast is about, but that's what we try to do, right? Is we try to, navigate that and make it the best way possible. My next thought was talking about work-life balance, but I'm afraid you're going to talk about Job Docs and the work-life balance part.
Well, I probably will. Actually, that was the first thing that came up when I was talking to Tim, our ownership, about the, potential questions that you guys might want to talk about was work-life balance. And that is something that has helped us. EOS as well, because again, we operate as like a tripod is what we call it. We have operations director, sales and business development director, and a financial controller. So the three of us really are the day-to-day decision makers within the business, obviously with ownership above, but we always struggled with pulling the pin, put one of us having to step out or be gone or do something. We were always having to call each other and say, hey, do you know where this is? Do you have this? Because we were operating off of Dropbox, Excel, different documents, PDF, all these different things where if someone didn't put it into the file, it wasn't there. So then we had to call everybody around. So it made it harder for us to leave because we also had minimal visibility into the actual project management side of where projects were at in their current stage and what was really going on. So now I feel like it's very rare that I pick up the phone to call someone to say, did you do this? Because now we've all been trained, go into the system, take a look. Is it there? If it's not there, they didn't do it. And then we have that phone call, that conversation about hey, why isn't this done? Or why isn't this in there? But that has, I for the first time went to Mexico and was able to see what was going on with my jobs and not be concerned that things weren't getting taken care of or handled. Or, I still have clients that just want to talk to me. And so I can jump on. I'm like, give me 2 seconds. Yep, you guys are clear. You're good to go. So that has been super valuable for ownership as well. They were able to do a month-long out of office trip.
For me, like hearing that, like that's the goal, right? Like
right.
The way I'm wired, the way I'm structured, the stuff that I do, it's all about helping. So when I hear you say, I was able to go to Mexico for the first time, knowing that if somebody needed me, I could be on vacation and still have it. And that they were able to leave for a month and do the same kind of thing is, to me, that's like real legitimate win.
Right. Well, even on a smaller scale, like you talked about, your employee that does the travel hockey and things like that for her kids. My kids didn't have school yesterday. The preschool just was off.
Yeah.
And I was able to be at home, still functioning, still operating versus, having to get into Dropbox or all these other different things. It's right at your fingertips, which is something that we were looking for because we already felt technologically advanced, right? We already were digital essentially and paperless. What we were lacking was the visibility into the actual project status and that information. We had to open a bunch of documents to find one thing. And now it's where, do you know what that is? Look at attributes. It's in attributes. That's where you go.
Well, and two, I think we were able to implement some of the auto tasks that move things along for you guys as well.
Yes.
There's a lot of tools out there that are great documentation tools. Even some of our competitors are great for just holding documentation, but they don't help you keep things from slipping through the cracks. And so, like, I'm so proud of some of that stuff that they've done.
Yeah, the auto tasks for us, especially with the regulatory compliance, like sending OSHAs on every job, notifying the county that we're on a job site, because those all are associated to violations for us. If those things aren't done, there's liability there.
Yeah, sure.
If we don't do those things. And so it honestly has increased how quickly we can train operations staff as well. We had a gal start right when we were building job docs out. So she was working the old system and then was brought in and trained on job docs. And she even says, she's like, this is so much easier what we were doing.
I love hearing that. That's so great from the seat that I'm in to hear that sort of thing. So thank you for sharing that with me. That's great. We're close to, I honestly passed the 30-minute window with you and I want to respect your time. Okay. So are there any challenges you faced in operations in your role that you would want to share with somebody that's trying to get started in entrepreneurship or in a role like yours?
I think so. My position more so is on the sales side. I was thrown into operations because nobody would take on the integration for new systems. But I think getting everybody on board is one of the hardest things that you can do because people don't like change. They, instantly they're nervous, they're scared about how it's going to go. They feel like it's going to be harder than what they're currently doing. And if you can get your team to believe in you and in what you're doing, it's really for their benefit. I really do think that is something that operationally just makes it so much easier. Like our staff fought and fought and fought. Don't like no software, no software. It's going to be way harder. And now we look back and it's like, I know it was tough at the beginning, but we were able to implement that and use programs to generate SOPs so that they understood what they were doing and why they were doing it and what it was eliminating out of our old process as well.
So
That was a huge deal.
What would you say to someone to say, because that's one of the things we hear all the time, right? What would you say to the owner entrepreneur that's going, it's just too hard to get my team to buy in? What would be your rebuttal to that right now?
To me, that means that you're not communicating clearly with them and offering an opportunity for them to give feedback and input and be a part of the process. And that was one thing that I felt really strongly about when we started implementing software changes was bringing in each department and asking, what are your concerns? Where do you think this is going to be hard? What do you think the benefits could be? And kind of having them be a part of that process as well. So when we integrated pretty much any software we've done, we will bring in each department, show it to them, have them play with it to understand how it works and what portion of their job it's going to affect the most. And then allow them to say, hey, I don't like this or I don't like that. And again, that's for us where with job docs, those are where those questions came up and those changes we asked for was my staff saying, this isn't going to work. Like this is going to take 8 more clicks versus, I mean, one of the things we did were the job specific emails. Can we get a copy button? I just need that. I just need that little button right there versus dragging it, copy and paste it. So getting people to buy in from the standpoint of like, it's going to suck right now, but in 8 months, we're going to have so much more accessibility to this information and it's all going to be in one spot versus you opening different files trying to find it. So for me, it's the buy-in of it all.
Okay. Awesome. So last bit of advice, last thing you would want to share to somebody going to take on your role, going to take on entrepreneurship. What is it?
Yeah, I think you really have to commit and believe that you can do it and be successful, and it's going to be hard. And that's one thing that we talk about all the time is I'm not sure it gets any easier. I think it just gets different and you have new challenges, but those challenges are things that you'll overcome in creative ways. And then you can look back and be like, wow, that was really cool. Like we created that and we did these things. We were able to move this business forward and build this beast that we're super proud of. And, still to this day, Superior feels like my baby too. I feel like I have 3 because we were able to change, the market perception of who we were and what we did and build this brand that we're all really proud of. But it wasn't easy or overnight, and it was consistency.
And here's what I can tell you. I can guarantee you, Tim would love hearing you say those same things, right? Like I treat it like it's my baby because buy-in's hard to get. And like, I'm ecstatic when people are like talking to one of the other people on our team and like, oh, this is your company. You own this company. I'm like, I love hearing that because that says a lot about you. It says a lot about what you guys are building as a team when people think that's the reality. That's amazing. And I love hearing you say that. Jamie, such great insight. Thank you so much for being on here with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. I really appreciate it. And again, you guys are awesome. You've been a great addition to our Sassy family, and we look forward to where the future takes us.
Us too, for sure. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Thanks. Have a great day.